All right, settle in, my little morsels of mirth. Gather round, get cozy if your little hearts can handle it. Because tonight, you're not just getting a story from your friendly neighborhood entertainer. You're getting the truth, the gooey, sticky, utterly delightful truth from yours truly, Giggleswick the Grin. Oh, don't worry about the name. It suits me like a glove, a bloody, oversized glove. The boy who knew too much. It all started long ago, before the grease paint, before the laughter that rattles your teeth, before the screams that taste like sweet candy. I was just a boy then, a skinny, nervous kid named, well, let's just say a name you wouldn't recognize. I hated my life, hated the bullies, hated the drab little town, hated the way my parents looked at me like I was a broken toy. I just wanted to escape. And then I found a circus. Not a real circus, mind you. Not a big top with elephants and trapeze artists. This was a traveling show. A motley crew of misfits and outcasts pulling their wagons from one forgotten town to the next. And among them, a clown, not like the ones you see in pictures. This one was different. His smile wasn't painted on. It was etched into his very being. A permanent, unsettling rictus. His eyes, they held a universe of ancient mischief. He called himself Mr. Chuckles, and he was everything I aspired to be. I watched him every show, every single delightful, terrifying show. He didn't just tell jokes, he unveiled them. He didn't just trip, he orchestrated chaos. And the audience, oh, the audience, they weren't just laughing, they were enthralled, their faces contorted in a mixture of delight and genuine fear. I saw the power he wielded, the absolute control he had over their emotions, and I wanted it desperately. One night, I snuck backstage. The air was thick with the scent of sawdust, stale popcorn, and something else, something metallic and sweet like old blood. I found Mr. Chuckles alone, sitting on a trunk, cleaning a surprisingly sharp juggling knife. He looked up, and his smile seemed to widen just for me. Well, he rasped, his voice like gravel and honey. Look what the cat dragged in, a curious little mouse, aren't we? The apprenticeship of shadows. I told him I wanted to be a clown, a real clown like him. He laughed, a dry rattling sound that made the hairs on my neck stand up. You think you have what it takes, boy. It's not about the silly tricks, it's about understanding. He gestured around the shadowy tent, understanding what truly makes people laugh and what makes them scream. And so began my apprenticeship. Mr. Chuckles taught me things no clown college ever would. He taught me how to read faces, how to spot the cracks in a smile, the tremor in a chuckle. He showed me how to use the shadows as much as the light, how a misplaced balloon or a delayed honk could twist joy into unease. He taught me that fear, oh fear, is the most delicious emotion of all. It's raw, it's honest, and it leaves a delightful lingering taste. We traveled from town to town, leaving a trail of uneasy laughter and whispered rumors. The show was always the same, but the subtle shifts, the way Mr. Chuckles manipulated the audience, were a masterclass in psychological torment. I learned to choose my victims, my volunteers, carefully. The ones with the brightest smiles often had the deepest fears. The ones who laughed the loudest were often the easiest to break. There were nights when we didn't just perform, we played after the last of the regular audience had scurried away, Mr. Chuckles would pick a few stragglers, the curious ones, the brave ones, the ones who lingered a little too long. And then the real show began. The whispers, the phantom footsteps, the toys that moved on their own. It was a slow, agonizing unraveling of their composure, and the more they resisted, the more delicious their eventual screams became. The grand unveiling. One cold, desolate night in a town so small it barely registered on a map, Mr. Chuckles called me to his wagon. The air was thick with the scent of something metallic, and his smile seemed wider than usual. "Today, my little pupil," he said, his eyes glittering with a predatory joy, "is the day you truly become a clown. Today, you earn your grin." He led me to a small hidden room in the back of his wagon. It was filled with ancient costumes, strange contraptions, and rows upon rows of painted masks, each one more grotesque than the last. And in the center, on a dusty draped table, was a mirror, a peculiar mirror. It seemed to shimmer and distort the light, pulling at the edges of reality. "Look into it, boy," Mr. Chuckles commanded, his voice a low thrum, "and see what you truly are." I looked, and what I saw wasn't just my reflection. It was the raw, unvarnished hunger within me, the yearning for control, the delight in discomfort, the insatiable need to play with the strings of other people's minds. The boy I had been, the scared, skinny kid, began to dissolve, and in his place, a different smile began to form. Not painted, not forced, but a genuine, bones-deep grin. Mr. Chuckles stepped forward, holding out a pot of thick, white grease paint. "This," he said, "is not just paint. It is a promise, a transformation." He smeared a dollop on my cheek, and it felt cold, then strangely warm, almost alive. "And this," he continued, holding up a blood-red stick of crayon, "is your signature." He drew a wide, exaggerated smile on my face, mirroring the one in the mirror. But as he drew it, I felt a shift, a pulling, a stretching. The painted smile became real. My own lips seemed to twist and contort, locking into that unsettling, permanent grin. And then he held up a tiny, tarnished hand mirror. "Now, little clown," he whispered, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction, "choose your name, the one that truly reflects the artistry of your soul." I looked at my new face, the stretched grin, the eyes that now held a spark of Mr. Chuckles' ancient mischief, and a name bubbled up from the depths of my newly awakened being, a name that tasted of rusty laughter and delightful dread. Giggleswick the Grin. Since that night, I've been Giggleswick, and my performances, they've evolved. I still do the classics, of course, the balloon animals that seem to deflate just as they're handed over, the slapstick that's just a little too hard. But now, there's an edge, a promise, because I'm not just entertaining you, I'm experiencing you, your nervous giggles, your trembling hands, the faint scent of fear that rises from you like a delicious aroma. Mr. Chuckles, he vanished that night, or perhaps he simply became a part of me, a whisper in the back of my mind, guiding my hand, deepening my grin. So, my dear friends, you've heard my story, the origin of Giggleswick the Grin, and now that you know, well, let's just say it makes the show all the more intimate, doesn't it? Because after all, what's a clown without his audience. And what's an audience without a little bit of delicious, delectable fear? Are you still laughing, my little lambs? Or are you just starting to feel that chill? Hey. Alright, settle down, my little nervous Nellies. Giggleswick the Grin is back for another delightful tale. You thought the first one was just a warm-up, didn't you? A little chuckle before the main event. How you sweet trusting souls. Because tonight, we're going a little deeper. We're going to explore the fine art of persuasion and how a smile, properly wielded, can open doors you never knew existed, or perhaps never wanted opened. The town that lost its laughter. After I truly became Giggleswick, after that glorious moment in Mr. Chuckles' wagon, I felt a new inspiration. The small-time fairs and birthday parties just weren't enough. They lacked depth, so I struck out on my own, drawn by the whispers of despair that hummed just beneath the surface of everyday life. And that's how I found Oakhaven. Oakhaven was a picture-perfect little town, nestled in a valley, all quaint houses and manicured lawns. On the surface, it hummed with quiet contentment, but beneath that veneer, I sensed it, a profound, aching emptiness. No one laughed, not really. Oh, they'd make polite chuckles, forced smiles at social gatherings, but the genuine, gut-busting, tear-streaking laughter, it was gone, replaced by a pervasive sense of politeness. I knew instantly that this was my stage, my canvas. I rolled into town with my worn-out wagon, my faded, yet still menacing, painted smile, and my trusty bag of tricks. The townsfolk looked at me with polite curiosity, then quickly looked away. They weren't scared, not yet, just indifferent. And indifference, my friends, is a challenge I absolutely adore. I set up my little show in the town square. No fanfare, no announcements, just me, a single flickering gas lamp, and the unsettling silence of Oakhaven. I started with the classics, juggling, pratfalls, balloon animals. But unlike my earlier performances, I didn't try to force the laughter. Instead, I let the silence hang, heavy and uncomfortable. I made my movements deliberately clumsy, my honks a little too loud, my painted smile a little too wild. I watched their faces. They shifted from polite indifference to mild annoyance, then a flicker of unease. Excellent. The seeds of delightful despair. As the days turned into weeks, I continued my silent assault. I'd appear in unexpected places, behind Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning roses, reflected in the window of the sleepy general store, or peeking out from behind the monument in the town square. I never spoke, just my presence, my lingering, unsettling grin. The polite indifference began to crack. Whispers started. Have you seen that clown? He's always there. His smile, it's not right. Their quiet discontent was a delightful symphony to my ears. Then I escalated. I started leaving little gifts. A single deflated balloon animal on a doorstep. A tiny wind-up toy that would suddenly burst into distorted laughter in the middle of the night. A hand-drawn picture of a clown. His smile just a little too wide, tucked into a library book. The fear, oh, the glorious fear began to bloom. It wasn't the screaming, frantic kind, not yet. It was subtle, a tightening in the shoulders, a hurried step, eyes darting nervously. They were starting to feel, and once you make them feel, you've got them. One evening, I orchestrated a little gathering. A few of the townsfolk, the more sensible ones, decided to confront me. They approached my wagon, their faces grim, their voices firm. "You need to leave, clown," said a stout man, presumably the mayor. "You're upsetting the peace of our town." I just smiled, and then I did something unexpected. I pulled out a handful of colorful, seemingly innocent balloons. I began to twist them slowly, deliberately. The mayor and his companions watched, their expressions a mixture of confusion and growing apprehension. As I twisted, the balloons began to make a sound, not a squeak, but a low grating groan, like tortured metal. And then, as if by magic, the balloons began to change. They contorted, their vibrant colors fading, their shapes twisting into grotesque caricatures of human misery. A tearful face here, a screaming mouth there. The townsfolk recoiled, their polite masks finally shattered, and I saw it, a genuine flicker of pure, unadulterated terror. Delicious. The grand finale, a symphony of screams. That night, Oakhaven changed. The polite quiet was replaced by nervous whispers and bolted doors. The carefully maintained lawns seemed to wilt. In the silence, it was gone, replaced by the low hum of their fear. And then, my friends, came the grand finale. I didn't have to do much. I simply let my presence, my delightful smile, permeate every corner of their little town. The shadows seemed to deepen, to take on my shape. The wind whispered my name. The faint, distorted laughter from my hidden toys echoed through their dreams. The townsfolk began to unravel, their polite composure shattered. They turned on each other, blaming, accusing. The mayor lost his temper in the general store. Mrs. Henderson started screaming at her roses. It was a beautiful, chaotic symphony of delightful despair. And then, one by one, they started to leave. Not in an orderly fashion, but in a desperate, panicked exodus. They abandoned their pretty houses, their manicured lawns, their entire lives, just to escape the ever-present silent smile of Giggleswick the Grin. The roads south of Oakhaven were choked with cars, their engines roaring, their drivers desperate to put as much distance as possible between themselves and me. I watched them go, standing in the middle of the town square, my own laughter echoing through the now truly silent streets. Not a forced laugh, not a fake one, but the pure, unadulterated joy of a true artist admiring his masterpiece. The town of Oakhaven now stands empty, a monument to the power of a single, unsettling smile, a testament to how fragile sanity can be when confronted with a persistent, playful dread. So, my dear listeners, that's another tale for you. The story of Oakhaven, the town that lost its laughter and found its screams. And me, Giggleswick the Grin, I'm still here, always looking for my next audience. Always ready to bring a little unrest to your day. Are you still smiling, my friends? Or are you starting to feel that chill again? Alright, my little insomniac friends. Giggleswick the Grin is back. And oh, what a treat I have for you tonight. You've heard about my grand entrances, my delightful deceptions, and my charming little transformations. But tonight, we're going even deeper. We're going to talk about that sacred, peaceful place where you go to rest your weary little heads. That soft, safe space that I just adore to visit. The velvet curtain of night. You see, most clowns, the really basic ones, they like their big audiences, their bright lights, their immediate gratification. But Giggleswick, oh no, I'm a connoisseur. I appreciate the subtle artistry, and there's nothing quite as exquisite as the performance that happens behind the velvet curtain of your eyelids. It started quite by accident, really. I was passing through a particularly dull town. You know the kind where even the shadows seem to yawn. I'd done my usual charming work, planting little seeds of unease, watching the pleasant smiles turn to nervous twitches. But then, as night fell, I felt a curious little current, like a whisper in the dark, leading me straight to the quietest homes, the deepest sleepers. I found myself in a child's bedroom first. Little Timmy, I believe his name was, all tucked in, teddy bear clutched tight, and as his eyelids fluttered closed, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer pulsed in the air around him. It was the gateway, the portal to his dreams. And Giggleswick, being the curious sort, decided to step through the stage of subconscious. The first time was a delightful surprise. His dreamscape was ordinary, a sunny park, a friendly dog. How utterly pedestrian. But then I appeared, not with a bang, not with a hunk, just there, standing a little too close to the friendly dog, my grin a little too wide, my colors a little too vibrant against the gentle pastels of his dream. Timmy's dream self didn't notice me at first, but a tiny tremor went through the air. The friendly dog whined, then backed away, and as I slowly, deliberately pulled a single deflated balloon from my pocket, Timmy's dream self turned. His eyes in the dream widened, and a tiny, delicious gasp escaped his lips. I didn't do much, not at first. I just smiled, and then I began to dance, a slow, unsettling dance that felt like it twisted the very fabric of his dreams. The sunny park began to dim, the trees leaned in, their branches becoming grasping fingers. The friendly dog, well, let's just say its smile became a little too toothy. When Timmy woke up, he was screaming, but not from a nightmare he could describe. He just knew something was wrong. Something had been there. And that, my dear friends, was the moment Giggleswick realized his true calling. The eternal audience. Since then, the nights have become my favorite time. Why limit myself to waking hours, to crowded public spaces, when I have a ready-made captive audience every single night? Every time you close your eyes, that little shimmer, that little invitation, it's a siren song to me. I love the variety, you see. Some of you have grand, sweeping dreams filled with fantastical creatures. Others have quiet, mundane ones about bills and chores. But no matter the scenery, no matter the plot, Giggleswick is always there for the cameo. Sometimes I just sit and watch a silent, unsettling presence at the edge of your dream vision. Sometimes I'll twist the familiar into the horrifying. Your loving grandmother might suddenly have my grin. Your comfortable armchair might sprout too many legs and twitch with a life of its own. I love taking your most cherished memories and just tarnishing them ever so slightly. And the beauty of it is, you rarely remember me directly. You wake up feeling a delicious, lingering dread, a sense of unease that you can't quite shake. You might call it a bad dream, but I know the truth. You've had a private performance, a personal haunting just for you. So, the next time you feel that little shiver down your spine just as you're drifting off, or when you wake up with that inexplicable sense of cold dread clinging to you, don't worry, it's just Giggleswick saying hello, checking in on my favorite audience members, making sure you're still attentive, because no matter how tight you squeeze your eyes shut, no matter how many blankets you pull over your head, my dear friends, the show must go on, and in the quiet darkness behind your eyelids, Giggleswick the Grin is always ready for his next act. Are you getting sleepy yet? Or are you wide awake, just like I want you?